Hello friends, and welcome to our shared spiritual practice for the second week of Christmas. Our purpose in this series is to dive more deeply into the mystery of Incarnation, as we've been talking about through this whole series. And this is not just as a concept or a theological idea, but we want to see Incarnation as a way to expand our awareness and to experience a deeper connection with God and ourselves and others and our world. And so with that in mind, let's get started. Take a few moments again to center yourself. Turn your attention to your breathing and deepen it a little and make it a bit slower. Feel the air filling your lungs and bringing life into your body. And feel the cleansing as you exhale. Ground yourself in your space and on the earth. And prepare your mind, your heart, your body and your spirit for your practice. And remember to pause the video at any moment if you want to stay with any element or any reflection in this practice. And then when you're ready, today we're going to relight all 5 of our Advent candles. And when you've done that, sit in stillness and silence for a moment. You may want to again gaze into the flames or just close your eyes, whatever is most meaningful for you. And then become aware of what's going on inside you. What thoughts are there dominating your thinking? What emotions are you needing to process? What are you feeling in your body that is drawing your attention, that's significant in this moment? And what tasks are there that are pressing in on you a bit that you know you're going to need to do? Take some time to write all of these things down in your journal. And once you've written them, then lay the journal and everything in it aside for the moment. We will again return to it later in our practice. And so I'll give you a bit of time to do this again. I want to name something today that may be a little uncomfortable for me to talk about, but it also might be liberating, which is why I feel that I should name this thing. It's something that the church has done throughout its history, but it's also something that is now hurting the church a lot because people just won't tolerate it anymore. We're seeing people leaving the church at an unprecedented rate, and COVID has accelerated this massively. And a lot of the reason that people are leaving is because of this one thing that the church has done, often without even really being aware that they're doing it. What is this thing? It's that the church has set itself up as the gatekeeper to God. Now, not all churches do this, but the global church generally has pretty much done this from very early on in its history. You can recognize this tendency whenever church people imply that you can't connect with God outside of the church, or when they say you can't get to heaven without the church, or when they imply that God lives in their church building and we have to attend church to meet with God every week, and the list goes on and on. I'm sure you've experienced the subtle ways that some church communities place themselves between God and people as the gatekeepers. The truth is, it's not just the church, but much religion of all kinds that has this problem. Most of us have been raised with a very clear understanding that there is a separation between us and God. We may speak about God being everywhere. We may speak about how God is available to us all. We may even speak about God living within us. But there is still the sense that we have to somehow reach God. We have to do our religious work and our good deeds in order to find communion with God. And let's not get started on the idea that sin separates us from God. Even Christianity, which proclaims that we are saved by grace alone, cannot avoid insisting that we must pray a prayer, we must avoid sin, we must believe certain things, or we won't get to heaven where we could be with God forever. Rather, we'll end up in hell where God is not. In other words, God is more present to some than to others. And to some, God is not present or available at all. Now, for me, this is just so deeply problematic, and I resist it, not because I reject Christianity, but because I believe that this thinking is actually the opposite of the message that Jesus preached and that the Bible teaches. As we've explored throughout this Advent and Christmas season, the heart of the Christian message and the center of Christian experience is incarnation. And not just a once-off historical incarnation event in Jesus, but rather a universal incarnation, which is what Jesus came to show us. In the last few weeks, we've explored incarnation as an essential aspect of God's nature, that God is eternally embodied. We've seen how creation is the first incarnation, and how our own world and its creatures, including us, all incarnate God in their own unique way. We've explored how incarnation evolves as the universe evolves, and how Christmas gives us the window into recognizing and experiencing incarnation through Jesus the Christ. If all that is true, then we don't need any person or institution to be a gatekeeper. We don't really need anyone to lead us to God. And we certainly don't need anyone to protect God from us. If we are little incarnations, then we are already immersed in God, and God is already within us. We just need to learn to live into this objective reality, and that's where we sometimes get stuck. You see, subjectively, we don't experience ourselves as incarnations, and we often don't see the incarnation all around us, in others, in our world, in our universe, and so we believe that there is a separation between us and God. We believe that we have to do work to get God to love us and be with us. And we believe that if we mess up, then God can and will leave us, and we will be godless. We will be without God. And that's why one of my favorite parables is the prodigal son, because it reveals the difference between our subjective experience and the objective reality in which we live. When the son left home and lost all his money and ended up as a slave on someone else's unclean pig farm, he believed that he had ceased to be a son. He believed that the best he could hope for was to be a slave at his father's farm rather than the pig farm where he was. He believed he'd lost his relationship with his father and his status as a child in his family. Subjectively, he was lost and cast out and rejected. But as Jesus tells it, the father never stopped watching for his son. And when the son returned, the father did not for 1 second entertain the idea that he was anything but a beloved and honored son. Objectively, the prodigal son had never stopped being a son. He had never lost his place in the family. He had never lost his father's love. All he had to do was learn to live into that objective reality and let go of his subjective experience as separate, as lost. The application of the parable is this: when we realize that we are eternally and objectively little incarnations, that God is within us and we are within God, then this becomes the defining truth of our lives. God is not absent. God does not cast us out. God does not need us to do anything to earn or attain God's presence with us. We are already one with God. We are already beloved children of God. All we need to do is align our subjective experience with this objective reality. So how do we do this? Well, firstly, we need to keep reminding ourselves of this truth. Anytime we think we are separated from God, we need to remind ourselves that such separation is actually impossible. Anytime someone tries to act as a gatekeeper to God, we can comfortably turn inward and bypass their gates by connecting with the God within. I recommend making some time. It doesn't have to be more than a few minutes each day to recognize and affirm God's presence within you and to sense your deep connection with God's Spirit. And secondly, we can nurture the habit of being reverent toward every incarnation we experience. Just the other day, as I was out walking with my wife, we encountered a stork. A majestic black and white bird with a vibrant red beak. Its beauty was breathtaking, and we stopped in awe and wonder, and we watched it until it took flight. It was a sacred moment of encountering God revealed in this beautiful creature. And I needed to take note. I needed to enter the experience with reverence. Our souls long for us to live gently on the earth, and to experience sacredness in all things, all times, all creatures, and all people. And we can fulfill that longing just by learning to take note of incarnation at every opportunity. And then finally, we experience incarnation when we do whatever we can, lovingly, gently, and patiently, to help others to recognize their own divine nature, and when we help them to live as the little incarnations they are. Now, I pray that these meditations that we've shared together through the seasons of Incarnation, Advent and Christmas, that they may lead us into the new year with a deep sense of our connection with the God who is within us and in whom we live and move and have our being. So may it be. And so I invite you to sit with these thoughts for a moment again. Think about what has caught your attention. What do you want to think about some more? What has made you feel excited, or what has made you feel uncomfortable? What has resonated with you? And what do you want to ask questions about? Make a note of all of these things so that you can take them with you into your week. And then when you're ready, let's go back to our journals again and on another fresh page, draw a circle again for each of the thoughts and emotions and feelings and tasks that you identified at the start of today's practice that you're dealing with today. And again, use different size circles and different distances from one another to reflect the importance of each element and how they relate to one another. And then when you're happy with your diagram, think about the ideas from our practice today that have spoken to you the most. And again, draw a circle for each one. Use different sizes and different distances to depict how these things relate to you and to each other, their relative importance in your life. And again, when you've done that and you're happy with your diagram, draw lines wherever it feels right to do so, connecting what you've learned today with the things you've identified that are your experience at the moment, your thoughts and emotions and feelings and tasks. And then use that diagram with all the lines connecting all the different parts. Use it to see how today's reflection speaks into these different areas of your life. And make a special note of any significant insights that you receive. And then take this diagram with you into the week and return to it day after day. Adapt it if you need to as your experiences change. And so now, as we bring today's practice to a close, I invite you to write again those two things that you will carry into your life and relationships in this coming week. What is one truth that you want to remember and draw on from today's practice? And secondly, what is one thing that you want to do to live from this truth in the days ahead? Don't forget to revisit these truths and other insights from today's practice each day through the week so that you can work with them and go deeper with them and remember them. And so now, as we return to our daily routines, may we go in a deeper awareness of incarnation, and may we be even more open to experience incarnation more deeply each day. I really hope that this Advent and Christmas journey into incarnation has been inspiring and enlivening for you. And I really hope that 2022 will be a year in which your experience of incarnation grows ever deeper.